Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're zeroing in on a hyperlocal challenge for San Diego homeowners. We're going to dive right into exactly why your national city flat roof might be failing, what it actually takes to fix it, and how to get the job done right without getting ripped off. Let's get right into it.
Now, there is really nothing quite as stressful for a homeowner or a property manager than looking up and seeing that dreaded fresh brown ceiling stain. But I want to pose a question to you. Why do roofs, right here, especially along the SR 54 and 8th Street corridors, seem to break down so much faster than the ones further inland? Local roofing pros see this pattern literally every single day, and the answer has everything to do with exactly where you live.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to cover the coastal climate factor, look at 4 common roof problems, break down those repair costs, walk through the step-by-step process, and finally, navigate the permits and rules.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the coastal climate factor, what we're calling the invisible threat.
The main culprit driving this issue is National City's bay-adjacent location. I mean, so much for sunny San Diego, right? When that marine layer rolls in, it isn't just bringing fog, it's carrying a really heavy load of salt. And this salt air is working 24/7, silently pitting and rusting away the exposed metal, flashing around your vents, skylights, and parapet walls. In fact, local pros will tell you this corrosion is so aggressive here that it's usually the very first thing they check, even before they look at the roof membrane itself.
Moving right along to Section 2, 4 common roof problems and diagnosing the symptoms.
What's really crucial to grasp here is that the leak inside your house, the actual drips hitting your living room floor, is almost always just a delayed symptom of 4 distinct outdoor problems you can physically check for. First up is that flashing corrosion we just talked about. Second is ponding water. And let's just bust a massive myth right now. Ponding water is not just an ugly wet spot. If you've got standing water on your flat roof past 48 hours after it rains, that is a full-blown structural issue. It adds intense heavy weight to your roof deck and rapidly destroys the membrane. The third issue is membrane damage. Think punctures from a dropped tool or seams splitting apart. And lastly, storm damage, which is when the wind actually lifts the edges, letting the rain just pour right into those weak spots.
This actually brings us to a really specific issue tied to the local architecture. You see, a lot of national cities' multifamily housing and residential buildings are on the older side. This means they're often sitting on their original built-up roofing, or BUR systems. These older roofs are made of hot asphalt and fabric, and frankly, a lot of them are way past their expiration date. Decades of harsh UV exposure literally bakes these roofs, making them super prone to the blistering, cracking, and membrane damage we just covered.
Okay, on to Section 3, breaking down repair costs. Let's get some radical transparency here.
Just think about this massive range for a second. Anywhere from $450 all the way up to $7,000 or more. I know, nobody likes financial surprises, but you really can't just ask, hey, how much does a roof repair cost, without context. The final price tag depends entirely on whether you caught a tiny single puncture early on, or if you're dealing with a massive, ignored drainage issue that's been slowly rotting out the structure underneath.
To make this completely clear, let's break down exactly what those 3 tiers look like. A small repair, like fixing one puncture or a single failed seam, is typically going to run you between $450 and $900. Now, a medium repair jumps up to the $900 to $2,500 range. That covers larger seam failures, replacing that salt-corroded flashing or fixing up some localized wet insulation. Then you have the large tier, from $2,500 up to $7,000 plus. That's for major drainage problems and structural restoration. Oh, and keep in mind, if you have one of those older BUR systems we talked about, you're almost definitely going to land at the higher end of these ranges. Working with multiple layers of hot asphalt and fabric just takes a ton more labor and material.
All right, let's move into Section 4, the step-by-step process for doing it right.
You absolutely need to know the exact procedure a legitimate professional follows to make sure your repair actually lasts. Consider this your insider's blueprint. Step 1 is a complete inspection. And here's another myth for you. Leaks rarely start directly above the actual stain on your ceiling. Water's sneaky. It travels sideways under the roof membrane for a while before it finally drips down. That's why a good pro checks the entire surface. Step 2 is cleaning and drying the area completely. Step 3 is the material-specific patching. And Step 4 is sealing up those edges perfectly.
I really want to emphasize Step 2 here because it is absolutely crucial. A repair done on a wet roof usually fails within months. You literally cannot repair a roof in the rain.
Skipping the clean and dry step is the absolute #1 reason flat roof patches fail. Sealants and patches just won't stick to a damp or dirty surface. So if a contractor tries to slap a patch onto a wet roof, they are basically turning your standard $500 fix into a $2,000 do-over in a matter of months. Don't let it happen.
Once that area is bone dry, step 3 is completely dictated by whatever material is currently on your roof. For example, if you have a modern TPO membrane, the fix is pretty fast and clean. The pro will just heat weld a new patch straight over the old one. But if you have modified bitumen, that requires a torched or cold adhered layer. And if you're dealing with an older, built-up roof, they're going to have to work entirely fresh asphalt and fabric right into that damaged section.
Now, for those of you managing multifamily buildings, especially around areas like Grandeur Hall or downtown National City, this timeline stretches out a lot. You're not just fixing a roof. You have to coordinate with property management, draft resident notices, and work around tenant schedules. Because of all that extra admin work, a full multi-building repair project usually takes anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks from the initial planning stage to full execution.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Permits and Rules. Yeah, the red tape.
Let's be honest, nobody really wants to deal with California red tape. But I can reassure you right now, if you're just doing a simple patch, resealing a seam, or doing spot flashing replacement, you usually get to bypass the bureaucracy entirely. Small, straightforward repairs do not require a permit under the building code. However, the exact second your project involves tearing up structural framing, replacing roof decking, or tackling a huge chunk of the roof, the game changes completely. If things get structural, always double-check the requirements with National City's Development Services Department before anyone starts swinging a hammer.
You also need to keep the cool roof rules under California's Title 24 Energy Code in mind. Since San Diego County is in Climate Zone 7, low slope and flat roofs have to meet strict minimums for solar reflectance and thermal emittance. But here's the good news. A reliable local roofer is going to automatically specify these compliant UV-matched materials for you without you even having to ask.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to think about. Is your flat roof truly ready for the next heavy marine layer? Remember, the biggest threat to your roof isn't actually that rare rainstorm. It's the everyday, relentless salt air and those subtle warning signs. Keep a really close eye out for any standing water that sticks around past 48 hours. Seriously, urge your property manager, or take the initiative yourself, to get a professional inspection before a tiny little spot of flashing corrosion quietly turns into a $7,000 structural nightmare. Protect your investment and stay dry out there.